There is a thing about workers and entrepreneurs. The thing is, you have to choose what you want to be, and then once you have made your choice, you then have to research and study the things for the choice that you made, whether it is to become a simple worker or an entrepreneur, because they have to study and learn different things, an entrepreneur and a worker. So, in essence, they are completely two different types of people. And I can explain this in three ways: accountability, questioning, and automation. Let's take accountability, for example, first. Now, I'm not saying all of them are like this, but I can bet that a good percentage of workers always find someone else to blame. It is always someone else's fault or the government's fault. And it's like this for almost anything that goes wrong in their life. Quite often, there is no sense, quite often, okay, there's no sense of accountability for what happens in their own life. There are very, very few people that take ownership in their work, while most just find someone else to blame for whatever wrong things that happen to them, which is quite the opposite of the mindset of a real entrepreneur. So, the second point is questioning. Most workers, when, for example, he or she is assigned a task or a job to do, many times they just go out and do it because their boss or their superior told them to do so. The work can actually go well, okay? It's done correctly. Everybody's happy. The boss is happy with the results. But then the thing is, an entrepreneur doesn't just limit his or her thoughts to performing the task. An entrepreneur goes in deeper and further into the job at hand. They ask themselves questions such as, yes, my boss told me to do this and that, but it is, they ask themselves, is this actually the most effective and efficient way to do this particular task? An entrepreneur's mindset is always skimming through and scanning through things like this, the steps involved into accomplishing any specific task. And then they keep asking themselves questions as to how can they perform this particular task even better. Okay? And they ask themselves how they can do this job without them putting so much effort into the job at hand, which brings me to the third and final thought, which is automation. You see, as the entrepreneur is asking themselves questions on how to do a particular job better, if they find a way in which they can do this particular job without them actually being there to do it, they will be the very first ones to take that path. That is the mindset of an entrepreneur. Someone who wants to just climb that ladder up higher and higher. You can call them lazy if you want, but I call it smart business or smart way of working. For example, in the beginning of your work or your business, you may find yourself doing all of the tedious and busy tasks of always getting, for example, into chat groups, talking to people, explaining to people, educating people about your product or service or whatever it is that you're trying to sell, and convincing these people to buy into whatever it is that you are offering them. But as your work or business starts to grow, an entrepreneur's brains they start to run. Okay, they start to see ways on how they can replace themselves away from that job, you know, with someone else, for example, doing that job for them so that they don't have to take their time in doing that because they have already mastered in doing that job. So the majority of the people will not ask themselves questions such as these. The entrepreneur mindset is always running and running with thoughts like this, okay? Because that really is, if you think about it, the only way to scale any business into the hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars. Say, for instance, in the beginning, you yourself, you are the one writing articles and posts and recording videos to put them at your website and all of your different type of social media networks and forums or whatever it may be. Now, all of this that you are doing, it is creating obviously engagement with people that are consuming whatever it is that you're posting and writing out there. You start to, after all of this work, you start to receive emails, start to receive WhatsApp messages, chat messages in Facebook, Instagram, whatever, of people asking you questions and more information on whatever it is that you are trying to sell to them. It is only a matter of time when the volume becomes so much that this specific task will now start eating up most of your time throughout the day. And there are two things that you can do. A regular person will just keep on doing those things and be happy with it because at least now they got the business, they got a job, they will be making income for the rest of their life until they become old or whatever. They will not starve and life goes on. So no problem for those types of people. There's nothing wrong with that. But an entrepreneur's mindset is different. All of a sudden, they start to wonder, okay, what if I hire an assistant to handle all of these tedious works such as handling emails, handling WhatsApp messages, chat messages, group messages that are always going back and forth with people asking you questions about your services and your products that you're offering. Obviously, no matter how good you train someone to do what you have been doing yourself, they are never going to do it as good as you as the owner. And that is simply because they are just not as motivated because they are not the owner of such a business. And that's just the hard truth, in fact, of life. That's how life is. So one of the hardest things an entrepreneur needs to learn from the beginning of their journey, whatever journey they're taking, is that they have to be willing to exchange something, even if you make less, but it is a sacrifice you make in order to grow another side of the business. The only thing you can really do is to train someone to do what you have been doing yourself, something that you have been doing yourself very well. You implement the processes, you implement the controls, and then you develop procedures to minimize any loss. Maybe when you were doing it yourself, you got better results. It's likely to be that way, but maybe because someone else is doing it, instead of, say, for example, when you were doing it yourself, you were getting 10 sales per day, but now you train someone, they're doing it, but now the sales have dropped to 6 sales per day. Obviously, there is a 40% loss, okay? But it is something that a good entrepreneur is willing to accept because all of a sudden it opens them up to focus on different areas of their work, of their business and so forth. Maybe the other thing you do is not necessarily to hire someone, but rather implement a technology that does something for you automatically without a real person or a real human being having to be there to do that work of the business. You could, for example, record a video today, as I'm doing right now, and have it run as YouTube ads and Facebook ads or TikTok ads or whatever for months or even years. If this video that you record is effective, you let it run for as long as it may be, as long as it's bringing you new leads, new sales, new business. I mean, why not let it run? It's something already running on autopilot. So now in this example, you are giving up something, which is money, to run ads in return for more business. Say you spend $200 and it gives you a return of $400 in running ads. Again, you don't have to do this. You can obviously spend most of the hours in your day doing everything manually, posting in all of the sorts of different platforms, and still be able to make the $400 at the end of the month or the end of the week or whatever, without having to spend the $200 in ads. But then again, it will eat up a lot of your hours in a single day. And we all know that every single human being in this earth only has the same 24 hours to do something. So it is a question of exchanging time with money so that you can focus on other aspects of your business. So if we look at these two examples I just mentioned, first, I hired an assistant to do something you were doing in the beginning, or that I was doing in the beginning. Instead of making the full amount of income that you would have made if you were doing it yourself, you are now making, let's say, 40% less. Okay? On the second example, instead of making the full income of $400 that goes straight in your pocket, the entire $400, you are now only making $200 because you had to spend the other $200 in Facebook ads or YouTube ads or TikTok ads or whatever it may be. So you are making money on these two examples or two specific tasks when it is no longer you doing the job. It is not as much as you could be making, but now it opens you up to focus on a third, a fourth, a fifth, and many other tasks. You'll be making small chunks of money where at the end it will eventually sum up to much more than if you stayed stuck in doing just one single task in the first place. So for example, like this is where the real good entrepreneurs start to distance themselves from the rest of the world, like the regular workers and just the regular entrepreneurs. And if you actually take me up on getting access to my ladilsahotclub, you will see quite a bit of goodies inside, such as our entire line of taboo products that pretty much align you towards that thought process that an entrepreneur has in his mind.